The night sky was endless. A sea of stars stretched across the black canvas of space, glittering with cold light. Captain Elias Vere had always found comfort in the stars, but tonight they offered no comfort, only silence as his ship spun out of control. Alarms wailed, sparks showered from the ceiling. He gripped the controls, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Come on, hold together just a little longer," he muttered through gritted teeth. The Starlance, his exploration vessel, had taken a hit from an asteroid storm. Engines offline, navigation fried, gravity well ahead. He had one choice: crash or burn in orbit. So he aimed for the planet below, praying it had air he could breathe. The ship roared like a wounded beast as it pierced the atmosphere. Fire streaked around the hull, metal screamed, and Elias braced himself. Then, impact. Everything went black. When he woke, he was lying in a field of strange blue grass, the wreck of his ship burning behind him. His lungs ached, but he could breathe. The air was heavy, humid, filled with a faint metallic scent. Above him, twin moons floated, casting silver light over towering alien spires in the distance. A city. He staggered to his feet. Pain lanced through his ribs, but he forced himself forward. His suit was damaged, the comms useless. If there was civilization here, maybe, just maybe, he had a chance to survive. The city loomed larger as he stumbled closer. Unlike anything human hands had built, its towers curved upward like blades of glass, glowing faintly with veins of light. Alien voices echoed faintly in the wind, deep, resonant, unlike any language he knew. He pressed on, clutching his side, until he found himself at the base of a grand staircase carved into black stone. Firelight flickered above, and a rhythmic chanting reached his ears. Against his better judgment, he climbed. At the top, massive bronze doors stood half open. He slipped inside, his breath catching. The chamber was vast, a cathedral of crystal and flame. Pillars rose high into the darkness, each etched with symbols that shimmered faintly. At its center was a pool of luminous water, glowing softly like liquid starlight. And in that pool stood someone. She was tall, statuesque, her skin marked with silver lines that shimmered like constellations. Her long dark hair cascaded wet down her back as she raised her hands in prayer. She was unclothed, bathed only in the light of the sacred waters. Elias froze. His heart thundered. He hadn't meant to intrude, but he couldn't look away. She was not just any alien. She was breathtaking, regal, and powerful. Then her eyes opened. They burned like molten gold, locking onto him with shock that turned swiftly into fury. She gasped, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Who dares enter the sanctum?" Elias stammered, raising his hands. I didn't mean to. My ship crashed. I didn't know." Before he could finish, armored figures burst into the chamber, weapons gleaming. They surrounded him instantly, pressing spear-like blades to his chest. The woman stepped from the water, her movements graceful, yet filled with lethal anger. One of the guards rushed to drape a robe around her shoulders, but her gaze never left Elias. "Unbelievable," she hissed, voice trembling with outrage. "A stranger, a lesser creature, has seen the air of Zelenary in the sacred rite of purity." Elias blinked, confused. "I didn't know. Please, I swear I didn't mean any harm." The guards shoved him to his knees. The woman's jaw tightened. There was fear in her eyes, beneath the fury, not for herself, but for the weight of what had just happened. For a long, tense silence, no one spoke. The chamber crackled with energy. Elias's pulse hammered in his ears. Then the woman lifted her chin, her voice like steel. "By ancient law, this human must die." The words struck him like ice. He struggled against the guards, panic rising in his throat. "Wait, please, listen to me." But the woman turned her back, robe flowing as she strode to the edge of the pool. "Or," she whispered, so softly the room seemed to hold its breath, The law permits only one other path. The guards stirred uneasily. Elias swallowed hard, dread gnawing at him. "What path?" he managed to ask. She turned to face him, golden eyes fierce, her voice heavy with the weight of tradition. "Marriage, eternal and binding, to me." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Elias's breath caught in his chest. Horror and disbelief flooded him. He had come seeking survival, but what he had found was something far stranger and far more dangerous.
The silence after her words was heavier than stone. Elias knelt on the polished black floor, spears pressing against his chest, heart racing. His mind spun. Marriage? To her? He had expected execution, not this. The alien princess stood before him, tall and commanding, golden eyes lit with cold fire. Even draped in the ceremonial robe, she carried herself like a blade, sharp, unyielding. One of the armored guards spoke in their tongue, a deep growl of concern. She answered without looking at him, her gaze never leaving Elias. Though he couldn't understand the words, the meaning was clear enough. The law was older than her, older than all of them. Elias forced himself to speak, his voice hoarse. "Listen, I didn't mean to intrude. I didn't even know this place existed. My ship crashed. I was hurt. I wandered here by accident. Please, it's not what you think." The guards hissed, offended by his words, but the princess raised her hand, silencing them. Her stare pierced him like a spear. "Accident or not, you have seen what no outsider is permitted to see. The rites are sacred, the punishment absolute." She stepped closer. Elias felt the weight of her presence, like the heat of a forge. "Human," she continued, voice low and dangerous. "Our law offers only two paths. Death." She paused, letting the word hang between them like a blade. "Or binding. Marriage to the one you have dishonored." The guards shifted, clearly uneasy. Elias's throat tightened. His instinct screamed to argue, to shout, to beg for sense. But another instinct told him, this woman, this world, would not bend to please. "You can't be serious," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You'd force marriage with a stranger? With someone who's not even your kind?" Her jaw tightened. "Do you think I desire this?" There was bitterness in her tone, sharp as venom. "To be bound to a creature of flesh so fragile it can barely survive on its own world? To a man who stumbled like a thief into my sanctum?" He flinched. The words stung, but her eyes told him something more. Behind the fury was something deeper, fear, shame, the crushing weight of a law she could not break. "Then why?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. Just for a moment, the mask of the untouchable princess cracked. "Because if I defy the law," she said, almost a whisper, "my people will tear us both apart." A door at the far end of the chamber swung open. Elders entered, tall figures draped in layered robes, their faces hidden behind silver masks. Their presence silenced the guards instantly. The council. One elder raised his hand. "The human lives or dies at your decree, Princess Serenia." So that was her name, Serenia. Elias watched her straighten, shoulders stiffening under invisible chains. Her voice rang out firm and clear, though her eyes betrayed her turmoil. "The law is clear. He has seen me in the rite of purity. He must die, or be joined to me." The elders whispered among themselves, their voices like rustling leaves. Finally, one stepped forward. "Then it is settled. The bond must be enacted. This union will be eternal." Elias's blood turned cold. "Wait! No! You can't just decide my life like this." The guards shoved him to his knees again. Serenia turned away, as if she could not bear to look at him, but a faint tremor shook her hands. The elder raised his staff, glowing with faint light. "Bring forth the seal of binding." A hush fell as two attendants carried forward a crystalline vessel. Inside swirled a luminous silver mist, alive and restless. The air itself grew heavier as they set it between Elias and Serenia. She faced him once more, her eyes hard, but shining with something unspoken. "Kneel," she ordered. "The rite will bind our lives together until death. If you resist, they will cut you down where you stand." Elias's breath came fast and shallow. His mind screamed to fight, to run. But the circle of guards, the unyielding stares of the elders, the sheer gravity of the moment, there was no escape. He swallowed hard, looking at Serenia. For all her fury, she was trapped too, a prisoner of her people's merciless law, maybe even more than him. Slowly, against every instinct, Elias lowered his head. The crystal cracked open, and the silver mist coiled around them both like living chains. It seeped into their skin, burning and electric, until he felt a strange echo in his chest. Her heartbeat, faint but there. And she, he knew, could feel his. Serenia's voice trembled as she spoke the final words of the vow. "By the law of Selenian, by the seal of the ancients, our lives are now one. If you perish, I perish. If I perish, you perish." The chamber shook with a surge of energy, and then silence. Elias gasped, clutching his chest, the bond thrumming inside him like a second pulse. He looked up at her, and for the first time her golden eyes were not only furious, they were afraid. She turned sharply, robe trailing, and spoke to the guards without glancing back. "Take him. He is my husband now, by law. But do not mistake this union for love." And with that, she left the chamber. Elias knelt in the silence, the silver mist still fading around him, his life forever changed. He had not found death, but what he had found might be worse. The palace walls were made of living stone, shimmering veins of light pulsing through them like the heartbeat of some vast creature. To Elias, they felt more like prison bars than decoration. Two guards marched him through endless corridors, their armor clinking with every step. The psychic bond thrummed faintly in his chest, a strange echo of another life. He could sense her, Princess Serenia. Not her words, not her thoughts, but flickers, a chill of anger, the sting of humiliation, the weight of a crown that pressed too heavily upon her. Every echo reminded him of one truth: they were bound, husband and wife, by alien law. The guards shoved him into a chamber, lavish but cold. A single bed of dark silk, walls lined with alien carvings, a balcony that looked out over the city of spires. He staggered, still aching from the crash and the bond. And then she entered. Serenia walked with her head high, her robe flowing like shadow. Her golden eyes flicked over him as though he were some unwanted stain on her world. "You will remain here," she said flatly. "Your movements will be restricted. Guards will watch you at all times." Elias clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for this. You think I wanted to stumble into your sacred ritual? I was dying out there." Her eyes narrowed. "And now you live, because of our law." "Because your law gave me no choice. Death or marriage? That's not justice. It's madness." For the briefest instant, something flickered in her eyes. Pain? Regret? but it vanished beneath her mask of steel. It does not matter what you think, human. The bond is sealed. You are my consort now. The word dripped with disdain. Elias exhaled sharply, running a hand over his face. This isn't a marriage, it's a sentence. Neither spoke for a long moment. The silence stretched thick and heavy. Then, faintly, like a whisper across their bond, he felt it. Loneliness. Not his, but hers. A hollow ache she carried like armor. He looked at her differently then. She wasn't just angry. She was trapped. Same as him. But before he could speak, she turned away, her robe sweeping like a curtain between them. Do not mistake this for anything more. You will obey the rules of this palace, and you will stay out of my way. She left him there, the echo of her footsteps fading into silence. Days passed. The city outside was alive with whispers. A human had married the heir of Xylanari. Some called it scandal, others blasphemy. He could feel their stares whenever guards escorted him through the palace halls. To them, he was not a man, just a weakness that had been forced upon their princess. And yet, he and Serenia could never escape each other. The bond pulled them together in strange ways. When Elias cut his hand on a shard of metal, he saw her flinch across the room, her eyes flashing with pain she could not explain. When Serenia endured the crushing demands of court, Elias felt the weight pressing on his own chest, leaving him breathless. At night, in their shared chamber, silence stretched between them like a battlefield. Sometimes he caught her glancing at him when he thought he was asleep. Sometimes he heard her mutter in her own tongue, words heavy with longing. But every morning, the mask returned. One evening, as the suns dipped below the spires, Elias sat on the balcony, staring at the alien horizon. Serenia approached, her expression guarded. "You saved me," she said suddenly. He blinked. "What?" "In the sanctum, when the guards rushed in, you raised your hands instead of drawing a weapon. A warrior of my people would have fought. You did not." I shrugged, though her words struck me deeply. "I didn't come here to fight you. I just wanted to survive." She studied him for a long time, her eyes unreadable. Finally she whispered, almost to herself, "Strange. You are weak in body, yet I cannot call you coward." I smirked faintly. "Thanks, I think." For the first time, her lips curved, not into a smile, but something softer, fleeting. Then the mask slammed back down. "Do not mistake this for anything more. This bond is duty, nothing more." But Elias felt her heartbeat through the tether, quickened, uneasy. And he knew, despite her words, something was shifting. That night, as he lay awake beneath the alien stars, Elias whispered to himself, "She may hate me. She may despise this bond. But if we're tied together until death, then I'll show her what humanity really means." And in the shadows across the room, Serenia's golden eyes opened. She had heard him. She closed them again, her chest tight with feelings she refused to name.
The palace never slept. Even in the deep hours of the night, its halls echoed with footsteps, hushed conversations, and the distant hum of alien machinery. Elias was beginning to understand. The Xylanari lived under constant vigilance. Every wall seemed to have ears, every shadow eyes. He had grown used to stares filled with contempt. Servants turned their faces away, guards muttered under their breath. He wasn't just unwelcome, he was dangerous. And yet through the bond, he felt something darker stirring, unease, discontent, hatred, not just toward him, but toward Serenia herself. One evening, as twin moons bathed the spires in pale light, Elias lingered near the council chamber. The heavy doors were ajar, and alien voices rumbled inside. He leaned closer. "A human consort?" one voice spat. "She dishonors the throne. Already our enemies whisper of weakness." "She had no choice," another countered. "The law is absolute." "Then the law is flawed. If the people lose faith, we lose the empire." The voices grew sharper, angrier. Elias backed away, heart pounding. His presence wasn't just uncontroversial, it was shaking the foundation of their rule. Later that night, in their shared chamber, he told Serenia what he had heard. She was silent for a long time, standing at the balcony with her back to him. Finally, she said, "You should not listen where you are not invited." "Kinda hard not to when people are plotting to tear you down because of me," Elias shot back. Her shoulders tensed. Through the bond he felt the storm inside her, anger, fear, but also exhaustion. She turned, eyes burning. "Now I carry the shame of you." Elias flinched. He wanted to lash back, but the bond twisted in his chest, showing him something raw. Her loneliness, her terror of failing not just herself, but her people. He swallowed hard. "Serenia, I didn't choose this. But neither did you. Maybe instead of tearing each other apart, The door burst open. Guards stormed in, weapons drawn. Serenia spun, fury blazing. "What is the meaning of this?" One guard fell to his knees. "Forgive us, princess. Rebels have breached the outer halls. Their target is clear." His eyes flicked toward Elias. Her golden eyes widened, the bond flared hot in Elias's chest, fear sharp and cold. Without another word, Serenia drew the curved blade from her waist. "Stay behind me," she ordered. The rebels came fast, armored in darker steel, their faces masked. Blades gleamed, voices roared. Elias ducked as the first lunged. Serenia moved like fire, her blade singing, cutting through attackers with lethal grace. But there were too many. Elias snatched a fallen spear, clumsy in his hands. He wasn't trained for this, but he couldn't just watch. When one rebel slipped past Serenia's defense, blade raised for her back, Elias lunged. The spear caught the rebel in the side, staggering him long enough for Serenia to finish the strike. She spun, eyes wide. "You—" Before she could finish, another rebel charged. This time Serenia moved too slow. Instinct took over. Elias threw himself in front of her. The blade slashed across his arm, searing pain tearing through him. Through the bond he felt her cry out, her own arm trembling with shared agony. She cut down the rebel in a fury that shook the hall. And then, silence. The last of the rebels fell. Guards rushed in to secure the chamber, dragging away the bodies. Elias sank to the floor, blood dripping from his wound, breath ragged. Serenia dropped beside him, pressing her hand to his arm. The bond pulsed, a strange warmth weaving between them, slowing the bleeding. Her golden eyes burned, but not with anger, with something else. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk yourself for me?" Elias winced, forcing a shaky grin. "Because humans don't abandon the people they're bound to, even if the bond wasn't our choice." Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to tear the truth from him. The bond throbbed, echoing with her racing heartbeat. For a moment, her mask slipped. Her voice softened, almost breaking. "You are a fool." He chuckled weakly. "Yeah, but I'm your fool now." The bond hummed with something Elias had never felt from her before. Warmth, fragile, but real. And Serenia, though she said nothing more, didn't pull her hand away. The palace was no longer safe.
The rebellion had bared its teeth, and though the guards swore loyalty, Serenia knew what Elias now understood. Whispers of weakness had turned into blades in the dark. The council gathered in haste, their silver masks gleaming under the torchlight. "The people doubt," one elder declared. "They see the bond not as fate, but as corruption. This unrest will spread." Serenia stood tall, though the bond told Elias her heart trembled. "Then what is your solution? Execution? To break the law in front of the entire empire?" "No," the elder replied. "There is one path left, the Temple of Unity. Let the ancients judge this bond. If the temple accepts you, the people will obey. If it rejects you, the bond will break in death." The words chilled Elias, but Serenia only inclined her head, her voice like stone. "So be it." They left under cover of night. A royal cruiser awaited them, sleek and black, its hull carved with glowing runes. Elias had never left Earth's orbit before his mission. Now bound to an alien princess, he was being hurled across another galaxy. Inside, the ship was silent. Serenia sat at the helm, her posture rigid, eyes fixed on the stars streaking past. Elias sat across from her, his arm still bandaged from the rebel's blade. "You don't trust your own counsel," Elias said quietly. She didn't look at him. "I trust no one. Not anymore." The bond whispered of her exhaustion, the cracks in her armor. Elias leaned back, staring at the stars. "Then trust me." Her gaze snapped to him, golden eyes hard. "Trust you, a human who blunders into my sanctum, who drags shame upon me, who binds me to a fate I did not choose." Elias met her stare, unflinching. "Maybe, but I'm also the one who stood between you and a blade, the one who's bleeding because I refused to let you die." Her lips parted, but no words came. She turned away, hiding the storm in her eyes. The bond pulsed. Conflict, fear, and something else. Something softer. The journey took 3 days. Outside, nebulas bloomed like fire across the void, and meteors carved trails of light. Elias found himself at the observation deck often, pressed against the glass, staring at the infinity of it all. One night, Serenia joined him. She stood silent beside him, her robe flowing like shadow. "What do you see?" she asked at last. "Home," he said softly. "Not Earth exactly, but stars always meant home to me. My mother used to take me out to the coast. We'd lie in the sand, watching the sky. She'd say, 'Every star is someone else's sun. Somewhere, someone is looking back at us.'" Serenia's eyes lingered on him. The bond carried her emotions, a pang of longing, an ache so deep it startled him. "My people do not look at the stars for comfort. We look at them as territory, as thrones yet to be claimed." "Do you?" he asked gently. Her gaze flickered. I was taught to, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to choose something for myself, not for the empire, not for duty." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe you just did." Their eyes met. The silence between them was no longer hostile, but fragile, like glass. On the 4th day, they reached it. The Temple of Unity floated in the void, carved into an asteroid that glowed with its own light. Vast spires jutted upward like frozen fire, and the surface shimmered as though alive. The ship docked at its edge, and the doors opened to reveal a bridge of stone suspended over nothingness. As they stepped out together, the bond throbbed, stronger than ever. "The ancients will test us here," Serenia said, her voice hushed. "They will see if this bond is real, if it is not." Her words trailed off, but Elias understood. The temple would kill them both. He reached out, touching her hand gently. She stiffened, but did not pull away. "Then we face it together," he said. Her golden eyes flicked to him. In them was fear, and for the first time, hope. They stepped onto the bridge, side by side, bound not only by law, but by the first fragile threads of something greater.
The Temple of Unity swallowed them whole. Its halls shimmered like frozen starlight, walls alive with shifting constellations. The air itself hummed with energy, as though the temple breathed. Elias felt the bond in his chest surge stronger with every step, pulling him forward, binding him tighter to Serenia. At the heart of the temple, a great chamber opened, vast as a canyon. Floating rings of crystal spun lazily in the air, glowing with silver fire. In the center stood an ancient construct, tall, faceless, its body carved of the same living stone as the walls. Its voice thundered, though no mouth moved. "The bond is sealed, but is it true?" Serenia lifted her chin, voice firm. "The law bound us. That is truth enough." The construct's eyes blazed. "Law is not love. Survival is not devotion. The bond must be proven or broken." Elias swallowed hard. "What if it breaks?" "Then both of you will cease to exist." The chamber shifted, light twisted, and suddenly they were not standing in the temple anymore. The first trial began. Elias stood in a burning wasteland, skies crimson, ash swirling in the wind. Serenia was beside him, blade in hand, her robe turned to armor of silver and black. Before them rose a monstrous beast, 10 times the size of an elephant, its hide shimmering with molten cracks. The construct's voice echoed, "Protect one another or perish." The beast roared, shaking the ground. Elias stumbled back, heart pounding. Serenia darted forward with the grace of a warrior, slashing across its legs. Sparks flew, but the monster only grew angrier. Elias grabbed a jagged rock, his only weapon. "Useless," Serenia muttered, but her eyes flicked toward him, faintly grateful he was still at his side. The beast lunged, its shadow swallowing Elias. Without thinking, Serenia shoved him aside, taking the brunt of the blow. She slammed against the ground, her armor cracking. Pain flared through the bond, slicing into Elias's chest as though her wound were his own. He screamed, stumbling toward her, "Get up! Don't you dare give up now!" He hurled the rock into the beast's eye. It howled, staggering back. Not much damage, but enough to buy time. Elias grabbed Serenia's arm, pulling her to her feet. She stared at him, shocked. "You risked yourself?" I cut her off, breathless. "We're in this together, remember?" Their hearts thundered in unison, bond pulsing like fire. Together they struck again. Her blade a flash of silver, his rocks aimed true. At last the beast collapsed, dissolving into light. The wasteland faded. The second trial began. This time, Elias found himself in a drowning ocean. Waves slammed against him, dragging him under. He fought upward, lungs burning, but the weight of the water crushed him. Through the haze, he saw Serenia sinking, her armor dragging her down. The construct's voice echoed, Choose your life or hers." His chest screamed for air. Instinct urged him to surface, to survive. But when he looked at her, golden eyes wide, hand reaching, he knew there was no choice. He dove deeper, wrapping his arms around her, kicking with every ounce of strength. His vision blurred, blackness closing in. He pressed his lips to hers, forcing the last of his air into her lungs. Her body jerked in shock. The world went dark. But before death claimed him, warmth surged through the bond. Serenia clutched him tight, sharing her own breath back, their lives flowing into one another like a single current. The ocean vanished. The third trial. They stood in the temple once more, but the air was heavy, suffocating. Before Serenia hovered a glowing figure. Elias. Before Elias, another figure. Serenia. Perfect illusions, soft-spoken and kind. The construct's voice boomed. "Your bond is not forged by law, but by choice. Will you release one another, or remain bound?" The illusions smiled sweetly. The false Elias whispered to Serenia, "Let me go. Be free of this human weakness. Choose your throne." The false Serenia told Elias, "Release me. Return to your world. This bond will only break you." For a long, terrible moment, silence reigned. Elias stared at the illusion of Serenia, beautiful, untouchable. A life without her meant freedom, survival. But his heart ached. "No," he whispered. "I don't want freedom. I want her, even if it kills me." Across the chamber, Serenia trembled. Her illusion urged her to cut the bond, to claim her destiny alone. She lifted her hand, then let it fall. Her voice broke as she cried out, "I choose him. I choose my human." The illusions shattered into light. The construct's voice rumbled. "The bond is proven. You are one." They collapsed together, trembling, gasping. Serenia pressed her forehead to his, golden eyes shining with tears she would not let fall. "You fool," she whispered. "You gave everything in there, for me." Elias smiled weakly. "Guess that means I passed your people's test of being a husband, huh?" Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "Perhaps." The temple pulsed with light, sealing the bond not with law, but with choice. And for the first time, Serenia let herself believe this bond might be more than chains.
The temple's glow had barely dimmed when the air trembled. Elias and Serenia stood in the center of the chamber, the bond between them humming like a living flame. For the first time since their fateful meeting, they weren't enemies or prisoners. They were partners. Choice, not law, had bound them. But outside the chamber, shadows gathered. The first explosion shattered the silence. The floor quaked, dust raining from the vaulted ceiling. Serenia's eyes snapped toward the entryway, her golden gaze sharp with alarm. She hissed, "They've come." Before Elias could ask who, the doors burst open. A wave of rebels surged in, armored in black steel, their insignias painted crimson, their eyes burning with hate. "The false princess," one of them shouted. "The human defiler! End them both!" Blades clashed instantly. Serenia met them head-on, her curved sword singing through the air, each strike precise and deadly. She moved like fire, but there were too many. Elias snatched up a broken spear from the temple floor. His body ached from the trials, his arm still stiff with pain, but the bond pulsed with her fury and resolve. It carried him forward, fueling him. The rebels fought with savage determination. They didn't just want Elias dead. They wanted Serenia destroyed for choosing him. Every strike they made was aimed at breaking her will. But Serenia fought harder. For the first time, her power wasn't fueled by duty or pride. It was fueled by something else. By him. "Stay close," she barked, cutting down 2 attackers in a blur. Elias nodded, parrying clumsily with the spear, every breath ragged. One rebel slipped past her guard, blade raised for his throat. Elias tried to block, but too slow. Serenia shoved him aside, taking the blade deep into her side. She gasped, stumbling, her golden eyes flashing with pain. Through the bond, Elias felt it like fire in his own ribs. "No!" he shouted, rage tearing through him. He swung the spear with all his strength, striking the rebel down. Blood pooled beneath her as Serenia staggered, her grip on her sword faltering. Elias dropped to her side, panic surging. And then another rebel lunged. Elias turned just in time, throwing himself between the blade and Serenia. Steel cut into his chest, hot and searing. He collapsed into her arms, the bond thrumming wildly, their pain mingling into one unbearable chorus. "Elias!" Her voice broke. Trembling for the first time, she pressed her hand to his wound, golden eyes wide with terror. Why would you do this?" He forced a smile, blood staining his lips. Better I die with you than live without you." The bond flared bright, flooding with his truth. For Serenia, it was like the temple's trials all over again, but this time not illusion. His choice was real. His sacrifice was real. Her hands shook as she cradled him, fury and despair burning in her veins. She lifted her gaze to the rebels, voice raw with power. "You dare touch what is mine?" The temple itself seemed to tremble. Energy rippled from her body, her silver-marked skin blazing like molten light. She rose, Elias in her arms, and unleashed her wrath. The rebels faltered. For every step they took forward, she struck them down in a storm of blade and fire. Her cries echoed through the temple, not just a warrior's rage, but a woman's desperate vow. One by one, the rebels fell. The last fled into the shadows, screaming of a princess who had betrayed her own crown by loving a human. At last, silence. Serenia fell to her knees, Elias still in her arms. His breaths were shallow, each one weaker than the last. The bond pulsed erratically, like a flame struggling to survive. Tears slipped down her cheeks, defying her every effort to contain them. She pressed her forehead to his, whispering, "No, you will not leave me, do you hear? You are mine, Elias, my husband, my fool, my heart." The temple stirred. The ancient construct reappeared, its faceless head bowed. The bond has been proven in fire. Do you choose to seal it, knowing it will bind your lives forever? Serenia's voice trembled, but did not falter. "Yes, I choose him, not by law, not by duty, by my will alone." The temple's light flared, enveloping them. Elias's wound glowed, the bleeding slowing. His breath steadied. Through the bond, she poured her strength into him.
refusing to let go. When the light faded, Elias opened his eyes weakly. You chose me." Serenya's lips curved at last into something true, a fragile, trembling smile. "I did, and I will, always." She kissed his forehead, her tears mingling with the glow of the temple, and for the first time in her life, she was free. Not from chains, but from fear. Because love, not law, had become her power.
The return to the capital was nothing like their departure. The royal cruiser sliced through the void, its hull gleaming in the twin suns, but inside, silence reigned. Elias lay on a narrow cot, his chest bound in shimmering alien cloth. Every so often, his eyes fluttered open, catching Serenya sitting at his side, her hand resting gently over his. She never admitted aloud that she was afraid to let go, but the bond carried her truth, and Elias felt it as clearly as his own heartbeat. When they arrived, the palace gates were lined with citizens. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Some voices dripped with scorn. "The human still lives." Others with disbelief. "The princess chose him." And some, quieter but growing. "She chose love." Inside the grand hall, the council of elders awaited. Their silver masks gleamed, their voices sharp. "The rebellion spreads," one elder warned. "Your bond is the source. Break it now, or risk civil war." Serenya's jaw tightened. The old Serenya, the one who bowed to duty, who wore her mask like armor, would have hesitated. But now she stepped forward, golden eyes blazing. "No," she said, her voice steady. "This bond is not weakness. It is strength, tested in trials, tempered in blood. He has stood where no Xylanari could. He has chosen me, and I have chosen him." The elders stirred, murmuring. Serenya drew Elias forward, supporting him as he stood beside her. His face was pale, but his voice rang clear. "You talk of weakness," Elias said. "But humanity has always been weak, fragile, breakable, and yet we endure. Not because of strength, but because we fight for each other, because we love. That is what your law could never understand, and that is what will make us strong together." The hall fell silent. For a moment, it seemed the council would defy them, declare their bond null, perhaps even order their deaths. But then, from the gathered citizens, a voice cried out. "He saved her life," another joined. "He bled for her," and another. "If the princess chooses him, then so do we." The murmur swelled into a roar. The people had spoken. The elders could not stand against it. That night, the palace glowed with lights not of war, but of celebration. For the first time, Elias walked the halls without sneers or whispers of scorn. Children peeked from behind pillars, their eyes wide with wonder at the strange human who had won their princess's heart. On the balcony overlooking the city, Serenya stood with Elias at his side. The twin moons bathed them in silver light, the wind carrying faint music from the streets below. "You changed them," she murmured, her hand brushing his. Elias chuckled softly. "Pretty sure you did that. I just refused to let go." She turned to him, golden eyes shining. For once, there was no mask, no steel, only Serenya. The woman who had once been bound by law, now bound by choice. "I was raised to believe love was weakness. that it distracted rulers, clouded judgment, and invited ruin. She took his hand fully, her voice breaking. But you showed me it is the only strength that matters. Elias smiled, drawing her close. Guess we're stuck teaching each other. I'll teach you love. You can teach me how to swing one of those swords without looking ridiculous. Her laugh was soft, genuine, like music he'd never heard before. She leaned her forehead against his, the bond between them thrumming, not with pain, but with peace. Later, as the city below glowed with lanterns, Elias lay beside her in the quiet of their chamber. The future was uncertain. There would be more rebels, more battles, more storms among the stars. But he felt no fear. Not anymore. Because every time his heart beat, he felt hers. Every time she breathed, he breathed with her. "Serenia," he whispered, "whatever comes, I'm with you, always." Her hand tightened around his. "And I with you, Elias, not because law commands it, because my heart does." Together they closed their eyes. Two souls, once strangers, now united, not by chains, but by love. And across the empire, whispers spread of a prophecy fulfilled, that the royal line would thrive only when bound to a heart from another world. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter, as if bearing witness.